The roar of Orban's massive cannon shattered more than Constantinople's walls on May 29, 1453. It ended a 1,000-year empire in a single devastating blast, forever changing the course of history and erasing Byzantium from existence. The Theodosian walls had stood unconquered for over a millennium, repelling countless sieges and invaders who believed them impenetrable. These massive fortifications stretched nearly 4 miles, featuring triple-layered defenses with walls reaching 60 feet high. For weeks, Mehmed II's forces bombarded the ancient stone with relentless artillery fire. The Great Bombard, Orban's masterpiece, fired stone projectiles weighing over 1,200 pounds. Each blast sent tremors through the city and carved deeper wounds into the crumbling defenses. The walls that had protected an empire for generations were finally yielding to the unstoppable force of gunpowder warfare. As the walls crumbled around them, Emperor Constantine XI gathered his remaining defenders in the pre-dawn darkness of May 29th. He delivered a final address that would echo through history, speaking of duty, sacrifice, and the weight of 1,000 years resting on their shoulders. The emperor reminded his men they stood not just for Constantinople, but for civilization itself. Then, in a moment that defined his legacy, Constantine removed his imperial purple and gold regalia. He cast aside the symbols of Byzantine majesty and took up a simple sword. The last Roman emperor would face death not as royalty, but as a soldier fighting alongside his brothers in arms. Orban's engineering marvel represented both genius and madness in equal measure. The Hungarian engineer had first offered his services to Constantine, but the impoverished Byzantine treasury couldn't afford his ambitions. Mehmed II had no such limitations. The massive bronze beast stretched 27 feet long and required 200 men and 60 oxen just to move it into position. Its barrel could swallow a man whole, designed to hurl those 1,200-pound stone balls with devastating force. The weapon's power came with a terrible price. Each firing required hours of cooling time, as the metal grew dangerously hot from the explosive force contained within. More than 7 shots in a single day risked catastrophic failure. Each night brought a race against dawn as Constantinople's citizens emerged from their homes to repair the devastation wrought by Ottoman cannons. Men, women, and children worked side by side in the darkness, hauling stones and timber to patch the gaping wounds in their ancient walls. They mixed mortar with trembling hands, knowing their makeshift repairs would face annihilation when the sun rose. The work continued in desperate silence, broken only by the scrape of stone and the distant sounds of the Ottoman camp. By morning, crude barriers stood where mighty fortifications once towered. These temporary patches represented more than construction. They embodied the final, defiant breath of an empire refusing to surrender. Mehmed II achieved what seemed impossible when 70 Ottoman vessels appeared inside the Golden Horn on April 22nd, bypassing Constantinople's legendary chain barrier. His engineers had constructed a greased roadway stretching over a mile across the Galata Hills. Throughout a single night, teams of oxen and thousands of men hauled warships overland on wooden rollers, moving them from the Bosphorus into the protected harbor. The Byzantines awoke to find enemy vessels sailing waters they believed secure. This audacious maneuver split Constantinople's already thin defenses, forcing them to guard yet another vulnerable section of wall along the harbor that had once been their safest refuge. Giovanni Giustiniani Longo commanded 700 Genoese fighters who became the backbone of Constantinople's defense. The seasoned mercenary had arrived in January with expertise the Byzantines desperately needed, taking charge of the land wall's most vulnerable sections. Constantine XI trusted him completely, granting him authority over all defensive operations. For nearly 2 months, Giustiniani's tactical brilliance kept the Ottoman forces at bay despite overwhelming odds. Then, in the final hours before dawn on May 29th, an Ottoman projectile struck him down. The wound tore through his breastplate and blood poured from the grievous injury. Against Constantine's desperate pleas, Giustiniani demanded evacuation to his ships. His retreat, shattered Byzantine morale instantly, sending panic rippling through the exhausted defenders who had followed his leadership through endless nights of bombardment. The Kerkerporta presented a small postern gate built into the massive walls between the inner and outer fortifications, used by defenders for surprise counterattacks against besiegers. On that fateful morning of May 29th, someone had forgotten to secure it after a sortie the previous night. Ottoman soldiers discovered the unlocked entrance purely by chance during their assault. A small group slipped through the opening and emerged behind Byzantine lines, creating chaos and confusion among the already demoralized defenders. The sight of enemy forces inside the walls triggered mass panic. This tiny oversight, a single forgotten lock, accomplished what weeks of bombardment could not. The greatest fortifications ever built fell not to Orban's monster cannons, but to human error. The doors of the Hagia Sophia burst open on May 29th to reveal thousands of Constantinople's citizens huddled inside, their prayers still echoing off the ancient mosaics. Families had crowded into the great basilica, believing an old prophecy that angels would descend to save the city at its darkest hour. No angels came. Ottoman soldiers flooded through the sanctuary, their boots thundering across marble floors that had witnessed a millennium of Christian worship. The faithful were dragged from their refuge and divided into columns for the slave markets. Mehmed had granted his troops the traditional 3 days of plunder, and they took everything of value. Constantine XI vanished into the chaos of battle, his body never definitively identified among the thousands of fallen defenders. Some claimed they saw the emperor fighting at the walls, discarding his imperial insignia to die anonymously alongside his soldiers. Ottoman records mention a body bearing purple boots, the mark of Byzantine royalty, but its fate remains disputed. Within years, a legend emerged that refused to die. The Greeks whispered that Constantine had not perished, but had been turned to marble by an angel at the moment of the city's fall. He sleeps beneath the Golden Gate, frozen in time, waiting for the day Constantinople calls him back to reclaim his throne and restore the empire. Mehmed II entered the conquered city on horseback 3 days after the final assault, surveying ruins that would become the foundation of Ottoman glory. The 21-year-old Sultan rode directly to the Hagia Sophia, where he ordered its immediate conversion into a mosque, symbolizing the complete transformation ahead. He declared the city his new capital, renaming it Istanbul, though the process was gradual. The Sultan initiated massive reconstruction efforts, repopulating the devastated metropolis by forcibly relocating families from across his empire. Within decades, Istanbul evolved into a thriving cosmopolitan center, surpassing its Byzantine predecessor in wealth and power, commanding trade routes between Europe, Asia, and Africa for the next 4 centuries. The fall of Constantinople remains one of history's most pivotal moments, ending an era that shaped civilization itself. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with others who appreciate history's greatest turning points.